Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we delve into the stories of professionals who are shaping the future of the workplace, real estate and facilities management. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I have the absolute privilege of welcoming Louie-Mae Gibson to the podcast. Louie-Mae is a distinguished figure in the world of facilities management and real estate, celebrated for her exceptional leadership and dedication to championing diversity and inclusion within the sector. With a rich background that includes a Master of Science, Graduate Diploma in Project Management, Graduate Certificate in Emotional Intelligence Practitioner, and numerous professional accolades, Louie-Mae stands as a beacon of innovation and empowerment. Her journey is one of resilience, dedication, and a relentless pursuit for excellence, which has not only earned her prestigious awards, but has also paved the way for women in the industry. As the Estate Director at Knight Frank Promise, Louie-Mae's influence extends beyond the operational aspect of her role, inspiring a new generation of leaders to break barriers and redefine the boundaries of their professions. Thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Glad we got there. That's quite an introduction, Jodie. There's a lot to have this podcast.
Well, it's all well deserved. I think you're incredible. So can you share a bit of your journey that led you to become the Estate Director at Knight Frank Promise?
Yeah, so I've been at Knight Frank Promise, Knight Frank for 5 years now.
Okay.
But leading up to that, there's head of ops. My first dive into the property world was head of HR and operations at Michael Louie-Mae, and that was 14 years ago. 4.5 years doing that, moved over to site-based roles. So done the whole gambit, but I think I quite like the site-based roles. It's quite different to working in a PM company in their head office. So just done a few jobs over the years, skipping about, and this is my lane, estate management, definitely.
And that's based in London?
Yeah, just up the road from London Bridge.
So tell me your passion, I guess, for championing diversity and inclusion within our sector. What inspired that passion ultimately?
Even in the early days before EDI was a cool thing or a tick box to have, even as a child, right, I always thought that, girls could have a football team or play rugby or, go for STEM studies rather than just, the tick box girl GCSEs that you go for. But industry specific, it's just looking around a decade ago in a room of professionals and seeing there's no representation there at the time of be it women in business or diversity. It was, as we call it, male, pale and stale, where there was just a load of middle-aged white men, basically. And I didn't see myself represented. I didn't see my friends represented. I'm a great believer, as long as you can do the job and do it well, then it should be equal across the board. And it was just changing people's mindsets. So it's been a long battle, really, because, why are we having to convince people, owners of businesses or developers or whoever it is in the property world that, women are just as good and if not, better. It's an individual's performance that should be taken into account when appointing people, especially in the middle management to C-suite levels, but we're still not represented. But saying to them, why aren't you promoting this person? Why have you got a board of 5 males? Or, there's no one from the LGBTQI plus community. There's nobody from a marginalised race community. People need to see themselves and they need to be able to be encouraged to be that person and to do and get promoted or do well or get the bonuses paid and everything else, and not writing people off because they don't fit what used to be the accepted norm. If you go back to, even as probably up to 2018, if you look at head of property management, head of FM, head of the PM team, director of ops and all these things, they're usually all blokes. And yourself, Jodie, even recently when we've gone to industry events and we look to our left and right, apart from the core of women that we know, it's, really unrepresented.
Yeah.
It's like, we're 2024, mate, and I can count all the women on my hands, all the non-white people on my fingers and toes. If you're to, add it all together, you're looking, I reckon, over 85% is still that core female. But we are seeing those of successful women emerge, or, you know, and diversity not being tick box, and people caring and thinking not only, you know, is it good for our CSR or ESG, but actually this is the right thing to do. Morally, this is the right thing to do. And we should all take ourselves outside and have a word with ourselves if we're not encouraging people to do it. Like, what are you doing? That's quite a long answer, but
no, it's a great answer, and it leads me on quite nicely actually to, you know, have you personally ever encountered any barriers, I guess, or have you faced any barriers in your career that around equality and diversity, and ultimately how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think I was quite fortunate with my first job with MLM, you know, because it was very much in my interview. The MD of the company was there, Michael, and then there was Shelley, and then there was Sangeet, and there's a few women. I thought, oh, this is quite good. So there weren't any barriers for me on my own to get into that job, for instance. But yeah, I see it quite often, be it around salary negotiations or flexible working, or their faith sometimes means certain days or certain times of the year. You know, you need to be more understanding and flexible with them, and if you're not, then you are actually sort of discriminating because you're making it impossible for them to succeed. So like Ramadan is a good example, and you do see it happening. No, you've got to be on site for 12 hours. Well, if they're not eating and all they, you know, how can you expect someone to be like that? That's madness. Or women returning to work, you know, I see it, and I still see it now. People reach out to me on, you know, LinkedIn or web, so not necessarily within, you know, the business I work for. But yeah, mum's coming back saying they will not allow me, you know, they want me to be in head office 5 days a week. I'm not going to see my child all week because I have to leave home at 6:30 in the morning, you know, get home till 7, so miss their bedtimes. And so what happens, these people that see either been made to work through Ramadan full-time, or women returning after a baby and so forth. Yeah, a lot of it. And it's not the odd case. It's quite often I get asked, can I have a chat, LM? You know, they've seen me speaking or whatever event. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And then it hurts my soul a little bit when I'm picking up the phone and I'm like, and I know some of these people, you know, think, gosh, you've been in the industry, you clearly know what you're doing. Why are these barriers? And then we just lose diversity across the business. And that's not good for any business, where people feel that they have no alternative but to seek another profession or reduce their current expertise to, I'm just going to do a real basic admin job rather than do quite a technical senior property job, because there's no way in God's green earth I can get into zone 1. I live in Oxford, not me, you know, live in Oxford, getting into central London every day, the cost implications of that, let alone the, you know, the other things. So it's a shame. Yeah, I think there's still so many barriers. Some of them are quite easily removed, but people have got to want to do that, and people's behaviours need to change. If it's an inherent behaviour of people to discriminate or to push back on every request or proposal for flexibility, or, you know, working outside, you know, thinking for a win-win, it's going to take us another 10 years, mate, I reckon. And that's shocking, really.
I completely agree. And it's not just about childcare either. It's any form of care as well. I think if you've got an elderly relative, or even your partner's got somebody that they need to care for, you know, it works across the board. So although we're talking about this in the context of, you know, equality and diversity for women or people of faith and that sort of thing, but I suppose we do have to balance it a little bit, that there could be men who, you know, will struggle with childcare or any other form of care. I completely agree. It is predominantly women. And I know that 10 years ago when I was working for a company, and if I'd had a child at that point, there's no way I would have got flexible working. I asked once if I could take my granddad who had cancer for a blood transfusion, and could I please work from home, or work from the hospital ultimately, so I could take him. And it was like, no, can you not get a taxi?
So that's not to say, no, I agree with that completely. And obviously just focused on the main hitters. But I do think people with disabilities, people carrying responsibilities, you know, but just all in all, like, talk about barriers, just stop putting barriers unnecessarily against any human being, even
Absolutely.
if they have no care requirements, or they're not a parent, or they're this fake. Don't look to just put barriers up for the sake of it. And sometimes when you drill it down, why have you refused this? Why aren't you being accommodating? And I'm not saying that businesses should, to the detriment of their business, always seek to approve and give, because that's not realistic. You see it now after COVID, the working from home thing and everything else from work-life balance, and people proposing 5 days a week back in the office. And I'm like, you're going to completely decimate a fifth of the British working population, because actually people's lives have changed, their responsibilities. And this is all part of it, isn't it? You get used to it. So be it doggy daycare that you have to pay for 5 days a week.
Well, absolutely.
Or you've got a poorly relative, or, you're disabled yourself, and actually commuting 5 days a week is exhausting. You can do it, you can make it into work, but that doesn't mean to say that that's at a cost to your already disabled self. I think I said before, just stop being dicks. If you can make things work, make it work.
Yeah.
Always seek a win-win. Sometimes you're just going to have a conversation and say, Bob, I just can't make this work, but what I can make work is B and C. A just is not doable as a business. And then Bob can actually be like, well, yeah, you're not pushing back. You're not just saying no for the sake of it. And actually, yes, please, B and C. I understand that A is not on the cards. So everyone walks away from that, not feeling shafted, feeling heard, and actually, yeah, that's all right. I can make that work.
Yeah.
or stop being turds.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of strategies then, have you implemented any strategies, throughout your career, I guess, to promote women's leadership within property management? Is there anything that you've done or are particularly proud of?
I don't think there's anything in isolation. It's just having that personal passion and just keeping it. I mean, sometimes, keeping the agenda live, right? It's not necessarily saying I've managed to get 20% of women in property to the C-suite, I'm just grateful now if we look around, that we've kept pushing and pushing for women, to be represented and heard and in positions of, higher positions within a business, and just calling people out, to be honest. I mean, sometimes that's probably what I'm proudest of, but equally what I've gone, and mate, but then I sit back and go, oh, well, nah, it's the truth. The integrity's there. I could have probably waffled a bit or flowered it up, but the bones, the nuts and bolts of what I've said all along, I'm all right with. I could have been probably more refined in the earlier days, for sure. I'm just glad that now when we go to events, you look at events in the property sector and you do see a lot more women that are got key speaking slots on, our core property diary throughout the year and all the different seminars and everything. There's now, and sometimes there's more females than males. But yourself, Jode, it's not just what I've done, it's when we collectively sit together and we're not accepting it anymore, it's encouraging each other, isn't it? You're terrible for it. And I'm like, Jode, go and speak, you'll be fine. And it's just like, but I'm not this. And I think we all sort of just champion each other. Yeah, actually, it's women in the industry that just, they're there for you. They do buoy you up. They will adjust your crown in private and not publicly. And we'll sit there and shiver each other on, or, just WhatsApps with voice notes to say, look, you knob, you're going to be great.
Yeah.
Or if you put a post on LinkedIn, just everyone sharing and commenting and being proud of each other. And I think that's a much more successful real way of highlighting women in business, rather than just going, oh, well, I've looked at the itinerary and there's only 2 women speaking at 4 p.m. You're not really going to achieve anything if you're constantly being negative about the situation. There's quite a few women that you and I all know that we just say to each other, go on, or thank you, or well done, or sharing successes of other people. And then that's infectious because it makes you smile, it gives you the warm fuzzies. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe when me and my best mate started out, and now she's there speaking at TPI, or she's on, speaking about a charity at the awards event of the year. That's infectious because it's like smiling, isn't it? You smile, the person opposite you smile. So you comment something positive, then it just breeds positivity, and then people will always lean towards that. So yeah, the original question about what, I don't think I've done any one particular thing. I think it's just constantly having a passion and beating that drum, and then just refining it over the years and just seeing actually what really works and champion women, and it's supporting each other and just being nice in it, really.
Yeah, well, definitely. And I think you've definitely given me confidence to do more certainly over the last year, and to stand up and be heard and be listened to. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very
And you're
much.
smashing it, Bird. Just smashing
Oh,
it.
thank you. So say somebody came to you, they were, I don't know, early 20s, female looking to come into the property world. What advice would you give them just starting out?
Like, you're not going to suddenly get a job tomorrow that's paying you like 500,000, but wouldn't that be nice? I'll apply for it.
That would be lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Step
take
aside.
that. Yeah. I've applied for that myself, so I can't advise you to apply for it. There's enough real barriers out there. So I'm just getting the answer straight in my own head. There's enough real barriers, and then there's perceived barriers, and that, the lines are quite blurred. But just say to girls, look, you're going to come up against these barriers, or people pushing back, or turds, or you're going to probably have to have one more course than the bloke next to you, but just stick to your lane. Always, like, salaries, this does my absolute head in, whether they're starting out or not. Don't just go, what's the minimum you will accept? And females do this all the time, and say to these people starting out, right, your market level paycheck is this. So I don't want to hear you going, I'm going to accept 24, be grateful. If it's paying 30 to 35, you say, I'm looking for 30 to 35.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself. Don't try and take too many things personally. I think, speaking to a lot of younger women in the industry, a bit like this PMF and whatever, it's not easy. And sometimes they do say, oh, but, is this? No, don't take it. Just try and put that to one side. Focus on you. Focus what you're good at. Have yourself, regardless of what company you want to join or specifics, set yourself out like a mini career plan. I'm not saying do like the Lenin 5-year plan, but, turn around, because men will get to this 2-year point and be like, right, I want promotion, I want a salary. And then at the 3, and then at this, and then at this, and then the next minute they've been in the business for 4 years and they want to be head of property,
Yeah.
Whereas girls will be like, no, I want to make sure I can do all of this. Just give it a go. Believe in yourself. Marie Curie, she didn't get to where she has got because she listened to men, did she? To be fair.
Great point. And I think, you say about believing in yourself for younger women. I think that's really important, even for, for my age. I'm turning 41 soon, and I still struggle with believing in myself now. And do I look back over my career and think, actually, is that because I've always worked for people potentially who wanted to keep me in my place, I suppose, in my box? I've been told, you're too wet behind the ears, you need to earn your stripes, you need to do this, you need to do that. When actually I knew exactly what I was doing. And of course I made mistakes along the way, everybody does. But at the same time, you just think, if I didn't have that drummed into me that I wasn't quite ready yet because I hadn't done X, Y, and Z, would I have just pushed myself forward more potentially? And would I be further along than I am now? And, it's certainly a strange one to think about.
Well, it's indoctrination, basically, that women, are you ever good enough? Can you do this? Can you have it all? Can you? And females are questioned a lot. Are you able? Can you do this? Do you think you're ready? They would not say that to a bloke half the time.
No.
Because the boy sitting there would be like, right, I've got these professional qualifications now. I've got 2 years sat in that chair. So I want this money and I want to be promoted. Oh, okay. The female counterpart could be doing exactly the same. And then we're going, oh, are you sure? Just like, maybe your confidence. Shut up. Like, obviously, I don't have confidence, but you don't necessarily have to be, a gregarious gobshite to succeed. Actually, quite like it that you're calm and considered, and you can multitask like a mofo. But people in positions of, be it team leaders, directors, ops people, that, they need to be saying to their team, I don't want to hear you say that. we need to be encouraging and just
completely agree.
Why would you say that? So Jodie, why are you saying you don't feel? You do realise you've done A, B, and C, then you go red face and go, well, no, but I do want to be egotistical. But and I'm like, but you're not. Have you done this, Jode? Yes. So then say that. But we need to, like with pay reviews, just look at what the banding is in your business to pay that, and don't you dare offer or underpunch because they're a female and they're going to accept it. I think that's quite a common theme, with flexi working and all that, where you've got a candidate that says, I need this job to be 3 and 2 or 2 and 3 at home because of whatever. So yeah, okay, fine, give me 2%. Whereas the male person will be like, right, cost of living's gone up, inflation is like this. I work, evenings and I do this. You're like, yeah, of course, Bob. Good old Bob again, But then Jode, all right, we're willing to do this, even though you're doing exactly the same for Bob. You're giving him 3 and 2. Oh, Jode, okay, but because you're doing 3 and 2, we're going to give you this. Is that okay? And you're going to go in your head, I've got 3 and 2. Thanks for that. Yeah, Louie-Mae, that's great. Thank you very much. You're projecting gratitude and sucking it up because you were so concerned that you weren't going to get this and you really needed it. So you're like, yeah, I'll take a pay. Yeah, flip it, cut my wages. Whereas Bob just like, no, I've worked really hard. And if you think I'm coming back to the office, no, it's fine, Bob. So managers need to sort themselves out and, and encourage girls. I've done it before with pay increases. Oh, no, I understand the budget. No, shush yourself. This is what I'm applying for. Obviously, subject to business and client payoffs and approvals or budgets or whatever. But yeah, we need to, as managers of people, we need to shush women and encourage them to be like, I want the same as Bob, and I'm okay asking for that.
That should be a hashtag. Be more Bob.
Yeah, we can have a few hashtags by the end of this show.
Absolutely. But in terms of the future of our industry, we had a bit of a giggle at a conference a while back when we were watching what is the future of block management panel. And it was quite an eye-opener, and we still laugh about that now. But tell me your thoughts, I guess, on the future of our industry and the people working in it.
Yeah, that conference that panel wasn't great, was it? But I'm glad you're giving it a bash, Jodie. I'm glad I'm giving it a bash. Us
girls giving it a bash.
Honestly, how I stayed in my chair and didn't go up to that panel and pull said person off the chair, I don't know. It goes back to calling out unacceptable behaviour, and the future is only going to change if people support each other and call out crappy behaviour, or the future of the property world. It can go either way. I think we're either going to stagnate at what we are now with a few token women and back, but or improving every year, bit by bit. It's going to affect immediate change 100%, because life just doesn't happen like that. But it's getting men on board as well. Like, let's not man bash all the time. Like, I always say this when I speak to anybody or have interviews, it's not man bashing, it's allyship, and getting key people in the industry, be it on the events or, that sort of side of it, or be it key owners of property companies or developers, getting them on side and being allies with them, and not just digging them out. Sometimes they're not even aware of what they're doing, or it's not done maliciously. But it's interesting when you call people out on the misogynistic side. I'm trying to think of what to say without making it too obvious about the giving it a bash day. But yeah, go up to them and say, did you realise what you were doing? Did you realise that you cut over the female on the panel every time she spoke?
Yeah.
Do you realise that you completely, you were so dismissive of all females that have just startups run by females? Do you actually realise that you've done this?
Yeah.
But on this side, there's other people that are great at supporting us. Nick Trevelyan and Vicky at News on the Block. There was an unfortunate thing the other year, which wasn't great. And they were just no, we're not accepting that. We're not getting involved in that. Done. And it was really nice to have that support around. I didn't have to ask them to, or change anything. But their mindsets were like, we are not having that. We are not encouraging that sort of behaviour. And we certainly don't support that. And it is abuse, abuse or misogyny and all the rest of it. So they've got like zero tolerance. And other groups, if speaking to senior people, we say, right, do you realise that all your directors are male? Have you thought about, well, yeah, we're just waiting for someone to, there's usually excuses. But I don't think massive change is going to be affected unless we do get everyone on board and wanting to change and not just going, no, here they go again on about bloody women and oh yeah, I guess so. All right then, let's promote two girls, actually shut them up. And I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
That's not how you should be approaching this.
No, and that's not the point at all, is it? I mean, and also on the flip side, there are probably plenty of women who work in our industry who are quite happy with their property management role. They don't want to progress. They want to come in, do their job and go home again. They don't want the stress and the hassle and all that kind of stuff of being the MD or the director or whatever you want to call it. But there are plenty of women who do want that and just aren't given that opportunity because, somebody thinks that they might have a baby, so then they can't be promoted because they might have a child in the next couple of years.
Maternity leave, don't employ her. She looks like baby bearing age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you speak to recruiters and ask them honestly, how many times has someone said, off the record, can you not send, any women between because we've had to pay? This still happens, we know a lot of female recruiters who tell us this. So it's shocking, right? And like I said, like some people don't want to get promoted. They want to just stay, male or female, and that's absolutely fine. But if there are people that do want that, then you need to start encouraging that. And other men within the industry, certainly when they see this happening, need to be or see bad behaviour, and need to call it out. I think sometimes people's behaviour only changes really when they start having kids of their own. Or they've got daughters, and then they're suddenly, now everything changes because they don't want, little Suzanne to be treated badly. They want her to go to a good uni. They want her to have a profession and a good job. So change massively their outlook and what they want to do. But unfortunately, we cannot rely on everyone having daughters for people to change their minds. It's not a good solution. I don't think that's going to bear much fruit. But yeah, allyship with everybody in the industry, not aggressively calling it out, but stopping bad behaviour when it happens. Just a quiet word with an organiser of an event, or if you're speaking to someone afterwards, did you really mean to say that? And I think it's better to do it that way than become a keyboard warrior and start posting on socials or having a fight after an event or whatever.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. But and also it might just be that, as you say, they're not aware that what they said had a good intention, but it just came out of their mouth completely the wrong way. Do you know, my dad, he's passed away now, passed away a long time ago, but we always used to say that he would say something and then be like, oh no, I didn't mean it like how that came out. And he didn't have a nasty bone in his body, and he wasn't a bad person and he would do anything for anyone. But sometimes when he said stuff, you'd be like you'd have to take a bit of a double take. And as I got older, he died when I was 23, but as I got older and, hitting that 16, 17, 18 age, and he'd say something, and obviously I was an emotional, hormonal, that kind of stuff. I'd be like, did you mean that? And, now I'm much older, I realise that, no, but he didn't mean it the way that it came out. So maybe that's a generational thing as well, that, they might have a heart of gold, but they just can't communicate very well.
There is that, and I'm not making excuses for there is an element of that, and sometimes I would say generally, Joe, 9 out of 10 times there is no spite. It is just like you said, they're not aware. Their brain thinks something, then their mouth says something completely different, and you're like, I know you're a good bloke, but that was completely turdish what you've just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, I would say, yeah, 9 out of 10, they're like, oh my God, they're mortified, or they're just like, no, 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 what I meant was, and I was like,
Yeah.
it didn't quite come across like that, love. And they're like, oh, 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 oh. So
Yeah.
they get it. For the 1 out of 10 that are just absolute whatever's, I don't think calling them out or that is necessarily going to help. I think they're actually just turds to the bone. We could give them all the scientific, data analysis and reasons and, the moral reasons behind all of this. They will nod at us. They will pat us on our heads like we're grateful little puppies, and they'll just go away and not even take any of it on board.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
not great at times.
No, no, definitely not. I mean, you've spoken a lot as well about, encouraging your team and that sort of thing. So what role does mentorship play in your career, like both as a mentor to, your team, but also being mentored by people throughout your career what's the importance of that to you?
I think it's really important, she's never formally been called my mentor, but Jacqueline Abbott-Dean, when I first left the army, my first civvy job, she was the head of learning for like Europe and like massive scene in that world. And she just took me under her wing, and that was in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
We still work together now. She's actually the CEO of One Loud Voice for Women, which I'm a ambassador for. And she's just been over the years, but what you would typically call a mentor, but she's just been there, the sort of the big sister, the mum type, the slap your wrist type, the keep, the stern sort of talking to when I've needed it over the years, or a bit of love when I need a hug. I think for me personally, I've been mentoring now for since 2010, I think, a long time. It's just giving back, isn't it, or paying forward. Like, I'm so grateful for the women that have shaped or helped or just been a mate over the years. A lot of the girls I've mentored or women, that in trying to progress in their professional career in management, it's important. It's a feel-good factor for you when you see them doing well. And for them, they just know that they're not doing it on their own. And I think sometimes people get a bit scared by the word mentor, like, think, my God, I can't mentor anyone. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an expert. I'm not this. And it's like, it's not really about that. Sometimes it's just about being an objective set of ears to someone. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a technical, critical thing, right. Don't overthink this. Just talking them through and then just getting people through some difficult times in their life or career. And I think more women do need to offer to be mentors, because again, you do not have to be a professor in the field of property management to be someone that a school leaver or grad looks up to and can just do with a bit of guidance, because we've probably been there, we've probably done it, and we're probably like, right, swerve this.
Yeah.
Here's an idea. Or do you know what? Should we have a chat and a glass of wine? How you doing, love? You seem a bit stressed at the moment. So,
Yeah.
it does, just to encourage more people to do it. I found it massively rewarding. I got a voice note actually back in August from one of my mentees about, a long voice note. And it was just gushing gratitude and humor. And I was just like, oh, my heart. And it was quite funny, because she said, like, she started with, now I'm a manager. God, Ellen, you must have wanted to kill me. I was a nightmare. And I was like, you tested me a little bit at times, love. But yeah, it's really nice. I think we should all do it. Don't overthink that. You are not there to provide them with full-on professional training or a therapist. But, if you attack it with, I say it's like the big sister approach, probably know a bit more than them, can raise an eyebrow when they're being a bit dickish, or can give them a hug when they're feeling a bit low.
And just showing empathy as well, isn't it? Everybody's going through their own life challenges outside of work, and just being that understanding shoulder to cry on sometimes that's all that person might need.
100%. Yeah. Just, have a chat. When they go, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you really though? Because
I think you actually said that to me.
I think I said, I don't want to hear that answer. Try it again.
Yeah, something like that. It was, I can't remember if it was the Doyen event in March or whether it was one of the conferences that we were both at, but you were like, how are you? And I went, yeah, not bad, thank you. And you were like, and try again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just nice that someone could see through the mask, I guess, that I was wearing for so long, and you just took one look at me and you just knew. Yeah, I don't know what maybe it was the wine, I don't know, that I'd had, and I just everything just came out.
It's because I know that I appreciate it. I really do when people sort of, they know LM, right? They know the sort of language I use. If you're my friends and you know how normally I'll come and go, oh yeah, oh, blah, 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 then I'm okay. When I come over to go like, yeah, I'm all right. Is
Yeah.
she really? Because normally there's usually 10 expletives, like a ridiculous meme that we have to delete WhatsApp afterwards. It's no secret the last couple of months I've been going through a bit of a rough time, with veterans and
Hmm.
PTSD and suicides and that, and it's hit me quite hard. But the love, Jodie. So I'm digressing from the mentor thing, but more about checking in with people and
Hmm.
don't accept the "I'm fine" answer. I've had some lovely messages and voice notes, and with no expectation of me going back to them, just like thinking of you, or whatever it
Hmm.
may be. I think mentorship is a lot of that, just checking in on people and just remind you're not on your own. You know what? Together we can give it a bash, Jode. We can
We
give it
can.
a bash. Yeah. So just give up your time. It's only like an hour, a couple of hours a month. And you could be the only person that outside work that they've got. So fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Can you share a experience, and this could be in your property career or your career in the army, where you had to really sort of advocate for change, I say either within property or your previous life?
Changing what arena? What, women in business?
Yeah, I mean, or any sort of change, I mean, obviously being in the army, that's clearly very male dominated. And I think I read somewhere that you were the only female initially
So
in the
yeah, I
area that you
mean,
were in.
when I joined the army, there really weren't as many females in certain regiments that there are now.
Mhm.
It was in intakes, in basic training, the majority would be clerks, cooks, medics, Royal Artillery didn't have a lot of females at all. I think advocate, like in the army days, advocating for change wasn't what we would call it now.
Mhm.
It was more just constantly feeling that you have to prove a point, be better, or just worthy of their acceptance. I mean, I look back now and I was like, if I was me now, that back then, I would have been tearing it up, mate. Um, but so in the army days, it was more females can do, and here we are. I think in Civvy Street that there have been times when you say X, Y, and Z isn't working, be that sort of a behaviour of a business or equality, equity. Yeah, definitely been a couple of businesses where I've really had to go to bat in just for fairness across the board.
Mhm.
People not being treated nicely, it's just not good places to work. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
knowing full well that you could maybe lose your job if you keep raising these situations or
Okay.
calling behaviours out. And then you literally have to make a decision. If I lose my job, back then, can I pay my rent? Am I going to be okay? Um,
Yeah.
but still challenging it anyway because it's the right thing to do. But some people behave really, really badly when you call people, or when you challenge, as you say, or fight for change. They just see you as this burden or pain in the ass, and so they react to that as more as trying to shut you up than actually work with you and affect change.
Yeah.
I think where I like where I am here, promise, we've got the people board, we've got the Jedi group, and that's representing our people and hopefully affecting positive change. I think more people are attuned to that in my current business, but there's still businesses out there, as you well know, Jade, that you can challenge and want to affect change as much as you can. But no matter what you do, right, they're not going to get on that fun bus. I think that's been a bit of a straggled out answer. So trying to
No, and I
not
and I
say
get it. I get it. I mean, I think I was at the Doyen event for International Women's Day, and you said something about imposter syndrome made up by men. Feel free to elaborate on that, but I think just little things like that, that is your way of advocating for change, because you will say things like that and you will, be the mentor that you are, and just be an incredible human. a lot of women will suffer with imposter syndrome. I do still now, it's, am I good enough to do this podcast? Am I good enough to stand up in front of 900 people at an award show to make a speech? That was an awards dinner, and you're literally just shaking in your boots. But what you said about imposter syndrome, I always try and remember that.
I've been doing it for so many years, saying and doing those things, I don't realise what I'm actually doing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was at Doyen, wasn't it? And someone said about imposter syndrome, and I said, again, Jacqueline Abbott-Dean, the woman I just mentioned, that's been my lifelong mentor. I was going to speak at an EDI panel, and I was messaging her, and I was like, "Oh, actually, Jax, I'm a bit nervous, and all the rest of it." And she was just like, "Ellen, imposter syndrome is made up by men to make us feel inadequate. It's a load of tosh. You absolutely do deserve to be there. Go forth. You know what you're talking about." Again, she's quite stern.
But no, it's that's what you need, though, isn't it?
Right. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then we spoke about it after. And actually, when I was at the panel, I realised I absolutely did know what I was talking about. And people in the room were seeking my opinion, and I had the answers, and the stats or whatever it was on this EDI panel. And afterwards, people were coming up to me. That's great. I was like, oh, I can do it. So that's I think people look at me like I'm full of confidence and just go bowling into these things. But we all get a bit nervous. But again, just shake it. I think when you were talking about, well, you're getting a dress for the awards or something. We said you had to get a new frock.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously, but you were more worried about how you would do. Me and Shell, we were saying, you'll be amazing.
Yeah.
So I think just between us, like, give your head a wobble, and again, bit supporting each other, you will be fine. So I think imposter syndrome, like when you're at client meetings or going through pay increases or promotions at work, or just have that sort of thought process. I still do it all the time, Jodie, because I question myself all the time. Am I good enough? Am I going to be successful enough? Am I doing this okay? Will this be this? Do people respect me? Do people like me? Oh my God. And then I go around this absolute washing machine head of thoughts. So I have to sit there with pen and paper. First thought, I'm a knob and don't know what I'm talking about. Second question, why do you say this? And I can list 100 things. Third question, what challenges this? And it's like, well, who has actually called me a knob? Who has said I'm not good enough at my job? What was your last appraisal with A's? What was your last bonus? What was your last award? By the time you go through this, is like CBT, paid and pet, but by the time you go through that thought process, you're like, actually, I'm not a complete knob. I do sort of know. So even if you meet yourself halfway, you're not going, I am the nuts, but you're sort of halfway. I'm actually okay. I'm not a train wreck. And I do sort of know what I'm talking about. You're halfway there. But do it with your friends as well. Males or females, whatever. Just tell them to give them head a wobble. And Jode, every time you go to, like, we all knew you were going to smash it. So just have a word with yourself.
Oh, it's so nerve-wracking though, honestly. But the good thing about it was that because there were so many people and the lights were on the stage and not out into the crowd, if you like.
Yeah.
I couldn't see anyone. All I could see was like all these dark heads. And so, I was very proud to have done that on behalf of the Holly Gazzard Trust, obviously. And yeah, it was definitely a night to remember. But looking forward for you as we finish off, is there a goal that you're most excited about pursuing in your career, or anything that you're excited about doing?
Career-wise, as in, do I want to move on and do a different path? Promotions and all that. I'm not really, I'm not really interested in that anymore. I like what I do. No longer aspirations of being an MD, CEO, COO, whatever. I'm cool. I think where I want to get at is just working more with women in business and more time with one loud voice for women, and just being able to offer up more time to support or raise awareness. You look at retirement, because we're at that age now where you sort of, how long till I retire? But I think my retirement would be from the property world, but continuing to work on equality and equity rights. Yeah, my end goal is just to really affect as much change as I humanly can, and just to be known as the person that will always, support others in their work or private lives. So yeah, keep raising awareness, keep women in the game. I want to come in on a walking stick at a leasehold event and just see a sea of, women and race diversity and be like, yes, all that gobbing off was worth it. We've achieved something.
Absolutely. Waving your walking stick in the air.
Yeah.
Batting away all the mean men.
Step away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. How can my listeners find you if they want to? What's the best way?
Probably just on LinkedIn.
I will put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Thank you for having me, and obviously for talking about all the things I'm passionate about. Appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're a busy lady.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
All right, Jo. God bless.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.